deep dive today into exactly how the Queen felt about Meghan Markle. And when I say she hated her, I know some people will think that is a strong word, Brittany, but I just want to explain what I mean.
Meghan Markle used a surrogate. That's been something posited literally for well over 3 years when it comes to her firstborn son Archie and even her daughter Lilibet. And many people even wonder, are their children even real?
We know how she controls Harry, and yet, you know, we're sort of told off, as it were, by an awful lot of people, or they don't want to listen to us or what we write. I get that anyway sometimes.
All of the pictures, my point is, out there were inconsistent with the idea of a real pregnancy.
I think it's very important that they don't come back now. And you can see that with William and Catherine, they will be absolutely delighted that this has come out, because it says they didn't get on well with them, especially the two girls. Quite right.
Fake Duchess was acting in the run-up to her wedding. At that point, the Royal Rota were completely on side with Harry and Meghan. At that point, there was no sense that they were going to report how the Queen really felt in that moment at Windsor Castle. Harry and Meghan Markle's surrogacy scandal has entered the mainstream media domain.
Nothing to do with the royal family and nothing to do with the Queen. And she loved Harry for many years. You know, he was the second born and he was funny and enjoyable and she really loved him. But when Meghan came, he wasn't allowed to, I imagine, and he didn't want to, because everything had to be what Meghan wanted, and everything still has to be what Meghan wanted.
Today we're going deep into what this video claims were Queen Elizabeth II's real feelings about Meghan Markle, and why some royal watchers describe the situation in unusually harsh terms. The argument starts with the early optics, the wedding symbolism, the choices that raised eyebrows, and the sense, in this narrative, that the warning signs were visible long before the public fallout.
But by the time of the wedding, by the time that she had figured out that this was a woman who was marrying into the royal family, not for love, Brittany, not for love, but to further her own career, and when she saw, and this I think is the key point for me, when she saw the way that this woman had changed her grandson forever, had destroyed the relationship between brothers, had destroyed the relationship between sister-in-law and brother, that's when she had had enough. So again, I know it's a strong word, Brittany.
For years, the loudest speculation hasn't just been about palace tension. It's been about the Sussex children, with online rumors questioning pregnancies, timelines, and even basic verification. The video frames this as a controversy that has grown beyond fringe corners and into broader conversation, while also tying the ongoing strain to the wider royal family's health and stability.
This case about whether you think the birth was real, whether you think there was a surrogate, whether you think Meghan was wearing a moon bump. The fact is, Harry and Meghan lied. Buckingham Palace lied on their behalf. There was a complete cover-up over the birth of Prince Archie.
In this version of events, the calm before the storm mattered. The press and palace watchers were, at one point, largely supportive, until the pre-wedding period, where the video suggests behavior and presentation began to feel performative, setting the stage for a very different private reality than the public narrative at the time implied.
It's important to go over sort of how Meghan responded to the royal family and how many divisions and conflicts that she was causing, because Meghan has really tried to paint herself as the victim in the scenario, when in fact she has been the villain in this whole royal family saga.
The central claim here is that the late Queen's most explosive conflict with Meghan wasn't primarily about race narratives or headline interviews, but about the long-running surrogacy allegations. The video argues the Queen believed she understood the patterns, the missing proof, the confusing optics, and the fear that a truth emerging could collapse reputations built on carefully controlled messaging. And in this telling, once the Queen concluded Meghan's influence had permanently altered Harry and fractured key family relationships, her tolerance ended.
And then the late Queen, so determined to build some type of relationship with Meghan Markle, in part because she knew that Meghan Markle was a troublemaker who was probably going to accuse her of racism at some point. And so she asked her about the dress. She asked her about the damn wedding dress. And Meghan withholds that information? What? She thinks the Queen's gonna leak it? Ridiculous. Back to this incredible reporting from Sally Bedell-Smith. When we spoke 2 weeks before the May 19th wedding, Lisa, that is of course Lady Elizabeth Anson, had just heard from the Queen.
After the Queen's death in 2022, the video claims new attention landed on what allegedly preoccupied her in her final months, specifically the succession implications of the surrogacy rumors. It then sets up its interpretation of motive and conflict, that behind the public image management, the palace was facing a private problem it couldn't easily resolve without detonating the institution's credibility.
They could say, no, we did not use a surrogate and be done with it. Why they don't is suspect, but admitting they did use a surrogate would unravel the lies. Why the need for a moon bump? Why cosplay being pregnant?
Here, the narrative escalates, citing alleged insider accounts and biographer reporting. The video claims the Queen expressed unusually blunt judgments in private and became convinced something was seriously wrong. It further claims that, near the end, she demanded documentation, medical records, physician-signed proof, and paperwork that would satisfy constitutional expectations around succession, and that the Sussexes refused. The argument presented is simple. If the answers were straightforward, the video implies proof would have ended the rumors. Yet the silence in this framing only fueled suspicion.
This is absolutely insane that they thought they could get away with it, especially Meghan Markle and Harry. The con of the century, 2 cons of the century in the form of 2 royal children included in the line of succession.
The video then pivots into a timeline audit, claiming that details described publicly, especially in Harry's memoir, include elements medical professionals would consider implausible. It emphasizes procedure basics, like how epidurals are typically administered and managed, to argue that parts of the official story don't align with standard clinical reality.
All Harry and Meghan need to do is prove to us that she popped those babies out. And that's all they need to do. And if they don't, it is unfair on the children. It's also unfair on the royal family.
It just really kind of boggles the mind. I mean, just for titles, for example. So when Archie was first born, they said they didn't want him to have a title. He was going to be a private citizen. I was like, bravo, you understand. He's not going to be a working member of the royal family. He is going to have to live a normal life, get a normal job. That is fantastic. And then it came out later in the Oprah Winfrey interview. Well, they denied him a title and security because he is a mixed race child. And then it was kind of like, and then later she kind of backtracked.
Now the accusations tighten around logistics. The video highlights claims about extremely fast discharge, alleged complications like preeclampsia, and what it portrays as contradictory public communication, private labor timing, delayed announcements, and confusing statements that left media and public feeling misled. The video frames the resulting optics, appearance, movement, travel, and presentation as a chain where each link raises another question, ultimately concluding, in its own argument, that the full timeline collapses under scrutiny.
Owes it to the public of each and every country of which the king is monarch to clear up any doubts about anybody in the line of succession. Meghan's conduct is what has triggered all of this. Archie doing a deep dive between the knees. Archie competing with Tom Daley before he was even given birth to. Archie's unique qualities, and we need to remember that Archie was truly unique because his first word was crocodile. And Archie, of course, was the product of a union that maritally started when they were roasting chicken. And I leave it at that. But what I will go back to say.
The video argues that royal birth protocol is normally rigid and immediate. Yet in this case, it claims shifting explanations created a fog of uncertainty. It frames the inconsistent messaging as more than a PR stumble, as something that looks, from the outside, like deliberate obscuring, fueling speculation rather than shutting it down.
What Meghan and Harry did instead was they did not announce it when Meghan went into labor, for whatever reason. They kept Archie's birth private for over 8 hours. They did not tell people that he was actually born and arrived until 8 hours later. They also issued a confusing press release suggesting Meghan had just gone into labor after Archie had already been born. So they were playing games here with this. And the result was that the media and the public felt misled because they were misled.
They decide, okay, well, we have to come out and show the baby in some way, but we're not coming out to the street. The filthy masses are not going to have anything to do with our kid. So then they show up, and there's Meghan in her white dress with Harry, and he's holding this completely still baby.
Next comes the visual evidence portion. The video points to footage and photos it says show unusual bump behavior, slipping, changing shape, shifting height, and inconsistent size across days. It contrasts innocent explanations, angles, shadows, clothing folds, with claims of repeated irregularities, presenting the overall effect as a pattern that, in this narrative, doesn't match what observers expect from a typical pregnancy.
She patted her bump from time to time because it didn't look big enough to her, the right shape to her, what have you. I 100% believe that's entirely a possibility. But the whole pregnancy, no, if you know surrogacy laws in the UK, I believe my understanding is that not only can you not pay somebody to do it, so you can't actually, like in the United States, you can pay somebody to be a surrogate. That's not the case in the UK. But also as well, I believe Meghan would actually have to technically adopt Archie if he was not born from her. The legal guardian of the parent in the UK, which is a complication as well, is always the mother who gave birth, and then the adoption can be organized later, whereas that is not the case sometimes in the United States.
The video then cites a separate moment, a hospital dancing/twerking clip, arguing that the framing and behavior don't resemble how active labor and medical induction typically work. The point it pushes is consistency, that performative content, presented as childbirth adjacent, invites the very skepticism it seems intended to dismiss.
Talking about her experiences on podcasts or things like that, or just posting a lot more pictures. It has drawn a lot of attention to the controversies surrounding her kids, her pregnancies, how the children came into the world, the whole thing. Everything she's done has only drawn more speculation and brought the controversies back up.
From there, the narration leans into motive. It claims the Sussex brand operates like a constant content engine, where even the most private moments risk becoming monetized narrative assets. The video frames this as not just distasteful, but revealing, suggesting the priority is documentation and leverage, not privacy or clarity.
Very excited to announce that Meghan and myself had a baby boy early this morning, a very healthy boy. Mother and baby are doing incredibly well. It's been the most amazing experience I could ever possibly imagine. How any woman does what they do is beyond comprehension.
Then the focus shifts to what the video calls the invisible children problem. It contrasts frequent public visibility of other royal children with the relative absence of routine sightings, school life markers, and ordinary community footprint. In this telling, the lack of mundane proof becomes its own storyline, because the more the parents live publicly, the stranger the children's near-total absence appears.
How exactly can Meghan, heavily pregnant, crouch down with her knees together? Well, quite a handful of people argue that since Meghan practices yoga, then she would have no problem doing exactly that. And it's great that Doria is a yoga instructor and Meghan has practiced with her since she was 7. That explains so much flexibility when she's stretching the truth. But one thing is being able to do a flawless crawl, and another, very different one, is vanishing an 8-month bump like David Copperfield.
Here, the video explains why, in its view, the palace is trapped. Any formal push for verification could be reframed publicly as discriminatory, creating a reputational firestorm the monarchy would struggle to survive. It also argues that confusion around titles and succession rules created an opening for narrative manipulation, where technical policy becomes emotional headline, and the institution, fearing backlash, chooses silence over confrontation. The video's emotional thesis lands here. It frames the Queen's final months as a collision between duty and helplessness, watching allegations grow, believing something is wrong, but unable to force resolution without destabilizing what she spent decades protecting.
Harry and Meghan, it's more a case of never reign and never abstain, especially when it comes to nauseating self-publicity, which invariably backfires. Sometimes, I don't know, words seem superfluous really. Meghan shared that bedside twerking video, taken shortly apparently before she gave birth to Lilibet. Remember the child that she named after the Queen's private nickname that was given to by Duke of Edinburgh, without getting permission from the Queen.
The narration then broadens the pressure beyond palace walls, claiming even Meghan's family publicly questioned the children's legitimacy and criticized the use of secrecy. It frames documentation, tests, records, confirmation as the simplest off-ramp from speculation, and treats the refusal to provide it as a story in itself. The closing argument is a full circle wrap. The video claims the Queen died believing she'd been denied proof on a matter with constitutional implications, and that since then, nothing meaningful has been done to settle it. It ends by pressing the same question repeatedly. If legitimacy is certain, why not prove it, cleanly, publicly, and once?